Our honorary degree recipient today is Adrienne Arsenault. Yes. Who will be introduced by Mr. Mike Carapita, Professor, School of Media Studies and Information Technology.
Hi, everybody. Today's Honorary Bachelor of Applied Studies degree is awarded to Ms. Adrienne Arsenault, and it's truly appropriate that we do so on a day like today when we talk a lot about achievement and recognition. Just last fall, Adrienne Arsenault was promoted to probably what is the most prestigious position in Canadian journalism, or right up there, one of the biggest, as one of the co-hosts of The National, CBC's flagship evening newscast. So how'd she get there? Well, she started, and this is good news for our graduates, she started as an editorial assistant, and then she moved up as a reporter covering news in Canada. That's where our paths first crossed. And then she covered news around the world, and I might add, real news. And she did what journalists always do best, writing that first draft of history about the best and the worst of humanity, war and peace, tragedies and triumphs, presidents and prime ministers, sad endings, and even happy beginnings like a royal wedding or two, just a little while ago. Along the way, all that hard work brought her all kinds of accolades, including some Gemini Awards, Canadian Screen Awards, the distinction as a Commonwealth Journalist of the Year, and an Emmy Award for her fearless coverage of an Ebola crisis in Liberia. And now she's here with us today. So, President Whitaker, it is with great honor and pleasure that we ask you to confer upon Ms. Adrienne Arsenault this Bachelor of Applied Studies degree. I now will invite Adrienne Arsenault to address the class of 2018.
There you go. When you're 5'3" and a bit, a box is very helpful. Guillermo, Mike, I'm getting all the names wrong, I'm so sorry. President Whitaker, members of the Board of Governors, honored guests, thank you. And you, look at you. You know, you are the Red Bull swinging, keyboard pounding, deadline daredevils, and you clean up remarkably well. There is a lot of hair product in this room, if I may say. Look, here's the thing. For the life of me, I have no clue who gave the convocation speech at my convocation. Not one clue. I was focused on me. And I'm good with that. I'm good if you're doing exactly the same thing. This is your day. And it's okay if you ask, who was that? You know, a year from now or, you know, tomorrow. But while I have you as a captive audience, I really want to let you know how much it means to be recognized by the school and by you. And to all the parents on the margins here, you know, the people whose hearts are bursting and wallets likely wincing just a little. The freedom that this day represents for your oh-so-smart kids is yours, too. My mom can attest to this. She's live streaming this because that's how she rolls. But she would tell you that she knows that convocation was around the time that my father started introducing me slightly differently. He'd say, hey, this is Adrienne, otherwise known as my pension plan. So to all the brand new pension plans in the room, I don't want to panic you, but there may come a point where your families are literally counting on you. The good news is you're going to be okay. You know, you're going to be better than okay. I am not a Humber grad. Well, I guess technically, I guess I am now. But I'm not actually a Humber grad, but I can tell you that I am bossed around by Humber grads all day long. I do precisely what they tell me to do. So your futures are not just part of great teams. Your futures involve leading those great teams. I know this is true. And here's what I know about you. No one handed you this education on a platter. You fought for it. I know that 20% of the media studies school students here are the first in their families to get a post-secondary education. You are trailblazers, and that's Humber. I know you are not the students who rolled out of bed and wandered into class in your pajamas because you had the commute, and then once you eventually arrived at school, you had to put up with a parking situation so diabolical, you could do laps in that lot that lasted longer than class, but you still showed because that's Humber. And you kept coming back even when they took the beer away from Lynx, which is ridiculous, but you came back anyway. But this is why I know you're about to soar, because you made a choice in coming to Humber. You did with your education what I'd kind of like to think I do with my journalism. You stepped back, you saw a route that so many others take, so many heading for the same, arguably traditional door, not that there's anything wrong with that, and you said, I know another way. If I'm going to meet different people, if I take a different entrance, I will learn different things and it's going to work. You will find what you're looking for. Because Humber taught you to think, yes, but it also taught you to do. You're not entering a world ready to start practicing what you've been learning. You're already doing it. So what's waiting for you? I mentioned my dad earlier because he was a TV director. He was a pioneer in the television industry in this country. He and my mom, the one who's live streaming it now, actually helped to open the first independent television station in Canada, CHCH. They were on the loading docks when those first studio cameras arrived. And they had to figure out how to put them together and where to put them. And I kind of imagine from their stories it was like an entire IKEA room without a manual and without a single Allen key. And he used to say to me that he figured, well, he saw the beginning of the industry, that just maybe I would be there for the end. And I wish he was still here now so that I could gesture to all of you and say, Dad, you're wrong. It's not the ending, it's a renaissance. And it looks exactly like the minds and skills coming out of Humber right now, because the media world that's waiting for you is not shrinking. It is overflowing with different types of platforms that are begging to be filled with good stories told in ways we can't even comprehend now. And we need you. For those of you who are studying journalism, we need your skills to call out the lies and those who tell them and protect the truth with everything you have. We need you to take your VR skills and show people what it feels like to be a world away, to use that technology, to have them stand in the middle of a refugee camp right at the level of a child and feel the disorientation and the fear and the noise, because it's too easy for the rest of the world to disconnect from the things that aren't in their bubble. You have to help them feel, because if they're not going to feel, then they're not going to act. We need your data skills to help find the clusters of abuses, of wrongs, and we need those exposed and fixed. Because this, I promise you, if an independent and strong media does not do this, no one else will. You have already shown that you can make a smart choice, right, in choosing Humber. So now you get to make other choices. Sometimes, split-second choices that will make a world of difference. It's kind of the nature, as Mike was saying, of what I do, that I spend a lot of time in places that are sort of racked with ruin, right? Like some natural disasters and some man-made ones. And when the world is crazy, sometimes I lean on the advice of Mr. Rogers. Okay, I know it's crazy. If you don't know who he is, ask your parents. They will tell you, and then you'll think I'm crazy, but whatever. Mr. Rogers used to on-pass on his television show to little kids some advice that he got from his mom, which is that in the very worst moments, look for the helpers, find the helpers. I like this advice, because you can get so overwhelmed in what we all do and what you're all about to do. You can get so overwhelmed in the evil of it that you start to block it out. And if you're a communicator, you know that when you block it out, people aren't listening to you anymore, but look for the helpers and the hearts will beat again. And I promise you, every helper you find ultimately talks of just making a choice, of just deciding to do the right thing. Sometimes in a split second. Mike was mentioning Liberia. That was 2014. I won't ever forget that Ebola outbreak. It was ugly. Too many people were dying. And yet we went to a clinic, and there was an interesting moment. There was a ceremony of people who had survived. Most thought they wouldn't, but they managed to survive. They were finally allowed to go home Ebola-free. In a way, it was a bit of a convocation, a graduation. And people were happy and singing, and there was one little girl sitting by herself sobbing. Her name was Esther. So Esther had entered this clinic as a really ill child. She and her parents had contracted Ebola. When she got to the clinic, she slipped into a coma. When she emerged from the coma, she learned that her parents had died. Which is why, in that moment, when everyone else was celebrating being able to go home, there's this child sitting there with a bag of brand new clothes crying because no one is coming for her. So in that moment, Esther was being watched by an aid worker who made a choice. She saw her alone and she said to the people at the clinic, "What's going to happen to this little one?" And they didn't know. So this aid worker who was running a school for girls in Liberia said, "You know what? I know what to do. We're going to take some of the buildings that we've been building for new schools, and why don't we turn it into a safe place for Ebola orphans just to get them on their feet again?" Esther became her very first guest. And it was a few days after this that we met Esther in her new temporary home. Totally different kid. She is very healthy. She spent years going to this school. Katie Myler, this aid worker, helped her find family who were willing to take her in, and Esther has a real future. And that happened because someone with the skills made the choice to get involved. And look, it's not a perfect anecdote for you. I know you're probably not heading off to be aid workers, but you are heading off into a world where you will be confronted and challenged in moments where you have a choice. You can step up or you can look away. And so my wish for you, my real genuine wish for you, is that you don't just look for the helpers, you become one of the helpers in everything you do. And it doesn't have to be big ways. When you succeed in these amazing careers I know you're heading off to grab, go ahead and celebrate your successes, but make a choice to carve a little bit of the pride and happiness you feel and share it. Find someone who shows up every damn day and isn't recognized in the way you know they should be, and share it with them. Lift somebody else up. Make that active choice. Quick question before I'm done. Hands up if you think there are enough jerks on the earth right now. We're good with this? Okay. So can we make a choice to call time on this? If you can, let's just decide to stop. Just decide to make sure there aren't any more jerks. Don't be one. The best work advice I have heard in a long time came a few weeks ago from someone who's actually leaving the CBC, heading off to teach at another college. He said, when you get the chance, give a colleague the benefit of the doubt. Try to think the best of them. He was right. We need to do this. It's not hard. It's easier than every single day, every assignment, every sweaty bus ride you took to get to school. But it's worth it. It will pay off in dividends, and I have come to believe it's the Humber thing to do. So I want to congratulate all of you. We are waiting to see what you have in store for us, and thank you for listening.